There are some NFL teams that are known for their explosive offenses. The greatest show on turf, St. Louis Rams. The Bill Walsh-led San Francisco 49ers. There are some teams known for their soul-crushing defenses. The Lombardi Packers, the Steel Curtain, the '85 Bears. Sometimes the difference between a team's offense and a team's defense can get totally lopsided, but some teams strike a near-perfect balance between the two sides of the ball. Who are the most balanced NFL teams of the Super Bowl era? I'm glad you asked, because that is the question we will be answering today. And we will be answering it by using C-Score, a metric created by this channel in order to evaluate every single team of the Super Bowl era that does so much more than just looking at its record. Specifically for this video, we will be using offensive and defensive C-Score. For a deeper explanation about how all this works, be sure to check out the description of this video. Now, balanced in this case just means most equal to each other. The offense and the defense can be equally great, equally average, or equally terrible. We're just going to be taking the difference between a team's offensive and defensive C-scores. The closest that difference is to 0, the more balanced that team is. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to ding that notification bell. It really helps us out. Let's start the countdown. Coming in at number 10 is a perennial C-Score favorite, a team we often refer to as criminally underrated, the 1976 Cincinnati Bengals. This 10-4 group put up a total C-Score of 24.952, with both their offense and their defense clearing 12 points each. There is a slight tilt toward the offense, however, and the gap between the two sits at 0.162. Part of what makes this team so underrated is that they didn't make the playoffs. They were, however, the single best team of the single wildcard era that failed to do so. As we mentioned, they went 10-4. 2 of those losses were to the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the greatest single-season defenses of all time. Another was to the Baltimore Colts, one of the most resurgent teams in NFL history. And the 4th was to the 13-1 Oakland Raiders, that season's eventual Super Bowl champion. They won their other 10 games by a combined score of 279 to 117. The other thing this team is known for is promoting Tiger Johnson to head coach over an up-and-coming offensive assistant by the name of Bill Walsh. Up next at number 8 are the 2011 Dallas Cowboys. Yes, number 8 because we have a tie for this spot. These Cowboys went 8-8 and put up a total C-score of 3.11. As was the case with the Bengals, it was the offense that comes out slightly ahead, just clearing a point and a half. The difference between the two is 0.156. This was Dallas's first full season with Jason Garrett as head coach, and it was a sign of the times with lots of mediocrity awaiting on the horizon. That said, this team had its streaks after a 3-4 start. First was a 4-game winning streak, 3 of those games at home, including their annual Thanksgiving contest. The other one, an overtime win on the road against a bad Washington team. Then came 4 losses in 5 games. The last of those came to the New York Giants, which cost them the division title to the Giants, who themselves ended the season allowing more points than they scored, which meant absolutely nothing as they went on to win the Super Bowl, while Dallas sat and watched from home. Now for our other team at number 8, the 1997 Baltimore Ravens. We all know the Ravens used to be the Cleveland Browns, but by NFL dictate, this is only their second season of existence. The overall C-score here is negative 2.864, placing their offense and defense in the negatives. The offense was slightly less negative, and their gap matches the Cowboys at 0.156. This early era of the Baltimore Ravens, from their debut season in 1966 before their 2000 run to the Super Bowl, is sometimes forgotten. They never once put up a winning record, with their 6-9-1 mark this season being no different. Ted Marchibroda was still their head coach, and their young draft picks from the season before, Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis, each made it to their first Pro Bowl in what would become Hall of Fame careers. The Ravens were at their best early on, starting 3-1. Their 5 games from week 9 through 13 failed to produce a single victory, but they did manage a tie against the Eagles. In the end, they were just kinda there, with nothing especially standing out about them, good or bad. Taking the number 7 spot are the 1984 Los Angeles Rams. Not the force they were during the 1970s, LA still put out a respectable C-score of 5.882. At 10-6, the offense cleared 3 points while the defense didn't, but the gap remains razor thin. To be precise, that gap is at 0.154. Playing in a division with the San Francisco 49ers in 1984 was not a recipe for winning that division, but the Rams were able to get themselves into the playoffs as a wildcard team. One season after setting the rookie rushing record with 1,808 yards, Eric Dickerson provided quite the encore in his sophomore season, setting the overall NFL record with 2,105 yards. More than 30 years later, both records still stand. He couldn't do it all on his own though. Despite getting to host the Giants in the wildcard round, the Rams fell 16-13. Dickerson ended with good numbers, 107 rushing yards and a touchdown, but hurt the cause with a costly first-half fumble on a hit from Lawrence Taylor. Coming in at number 6 are the winners of our Battle of the Franchises, the 2021 Buffalo Bills. In the midst of a long run of success, Buffalo went 11-6 and dropped a 28.086 C-score, the highest that will be found on this list. Once again, they tilt slightly toward the offense, which on its own cleared 14 points. Their gap sits at 0.124. These Bills played 17 regular season games and 2 playoff games. One of those games went to overtime. 19 games at 60 minutes each with 60 seconds per minute and just over 4 minutes of overtime means the Bills were on the field for 68,655 seconds. Yet it can all be summed up in 13 seconds. After taking a lead against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round, 13 seconds were all the Chiefs needed to kick the game-tying field goal before winning the game in overtime that prompted a rule change in how overtime works. This was Buffalo's second straight playoff elimination at the hands of the Chiefs, a fate they've since suffered 2 additional times. Leading off the second half of the countdown at number 5 are the 1993 San Diego Chargers. Their 8-8 record says they were average, but their 4.971 C-score says they were slightly above average. For the 6th straight entry, the offense rates out slightly ahead of the defense here, with the gap between the two coming in at 0.119. This was kind of an in-between season for the Chargers. In 1992, they shocked the NFL world, not only by going 11-5 and making the playoffs for the first time in 10 years, but by doing so after an 0-4 start, still the only time this has ever occurred. Then in 1994, they shocked the NFL world again by making it to Super Bowl 29. 1993 though? They tried to up their degree of difficulty again, this time starting 2-4. Then they entered into what looks like a pattern, but more resembles a rhythm. They won 2 in a row, then lost 2 in a row, won 2, lost 2, and won 2 again, ending at 8-8. I suppose if they had a couple of more games, they could have finished 8-10. They may have declined, but they did prove that 1992 was no fluke. Back to the 21st century for our number 4 team, the 2007 Seattle Seahawks. This crew went 10-6 and put together a final C-score of 5.661. But wouldn't you know it, we once again have a tilt toward the offense. At just under 2.9 points, Seattle gets us closer to a gap of under 0.1, their final number coming in at 0.117. These were dark times in the NFC West, with the Seahawks consistently proving themselves the best of that gnarly collection. In part due to that division, the Seahawks had not only the easiest schedule in 2007, they had the easiest schedule of the entire 21st century. Incidentally, the second easiest schedule of the century belongs to the 2007 Arizona Cardinals, also of the NFC worst. Again though, Seattle was the best of the motley crew, and a division title gave them a home playoff game, which they won with ease over the Washington Redskins, who were afflicted with the league's hardest schedule. A road trip to Green Bay proved a lot less fruitful, with Seattle going down 42-20. Nabbing the number 3 spot are the 2012 Minnesota Vikings. This team saw a marked improvement from the season before, going from 3-13 to 10-6, while stitching together a C-score of 7.896. The offense looks like it's more ahead of the defense than it actually is, but in reality that gap is only 0.116. The main part of the reason for Minnesota's resurgence this season was the return to form of running back Adrian Peterson. Nagging injuries and a torn ACL late in 2011 kept AD under 1,000 yards rushing for the first time in his career. In 2012, he made it to 1,000 yards. Twice. Ending the year with 2,097 yards, 9 short of breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season record. He remains the last non-quarterback to be named NFL MVP. But, like Dickerson before him, he couldn't do it all on his own. And, like the 1984 Rams, these Vikings were one and done in the playoffs. AD did what he could in Green Bay that day, rushing for 99 yards, but the Vikings ultimately fell on the field of their hated division rival. Taking the number 2 spot on this countdown are the 1981 Pittsburgh Steelers. These Steelers were a bit unlucky to land an 8-8 record, given their overall C-score of 5.949. We are now 9-4-9, with the offense getting the slight tilt here again at just over 3 points against just under 3. The gap for Pittsburgh is 0.107. This, of course, are the post-Dynasty Steelers, where they won 4 Super Bowls in 6 seasons and put together some of the greatest stretches of football ever seen by human eyes. The decline started the season before, where injuries and aging kept them out of the playoffs. 1981 proved that this was Pittsburgh's new normal, with injuries and aging once again relegating them to their couches for the playoffs. A 3-game winning streak at 5-5 was quickly followed by a 3-game losing streak to end matters, their first non-winning season in 10 years. The steel curtain was now more of a generic fabric, and it wouldn't be until 1995 that the Steelers got back to a Super Bowl, and 2005 until they would win one. At number 1, the most balanced team of the entire Super Bowl era are the 1991 New York Jets. They are only the second team on the list with a negative C-score, and in doing so, they hold this top 10's lowest C-score at negative 4.843. But they become the only team on the list to put out a stronger defense, and they are the only team on the list to break the 0.1 point barrier, with their gap dropping to 0.079. We started this list with a 10-4 Bengals team that missed the playoffs, and we ended with this 8-8 Jets team that made the playoffs, doing so from the AFC, while the 10-6 49ers and 10-6 Eagles missed out in the NFC. That's just where the balance of power between the conferences was at this time. The Jets tried to make the most out of that opportunity though, going to Houston and giving the Oilers a scare. Trailing by 1 possession the entire second half, New York twice made it inside the Oiler 10-yard line, only to come away with 0 points in an eventual 17-10 loss. This team's biggest accomplishment, though? Losing at home to the Indianapolis Colts, giving in their only win of the season, allowing 28 points to a team that scored 24 total points in their previous 5 games, and had otherwise averaged 7 2/3 points per game outside of this one. As we look at the top 10 as a whole, we must again acknowledge that every team on this list, outside of number 1, saw their team's balance tilt toward the offense. This turns out to be a statistical quirk, as on the whole, just over 51% of teams during the Super Bowl era actually see their balance shift toward their defense. This would indicate some closer scores for the offense, and while that is the case, it just didn't show up in this top 10. No franchise makes more than one appearance, and no team before 1976 appears, the season the NFL expanded to 28 teams. Not surprisingly, these gaps are pretty narrow, but the only two that are higher than 1/100th of a point are between numbers 7 and 6, and between numbers 2 and 1. Let me know what you think about all of this. Was there a team that you were surprised to see? A team you expected to see but didn't? Is there something to the fact that none of these teams were overtly bad, or that none of them made it to the conference championship game, let alone the Super Bowl? Is it perhaps better when one side of the ball is stronger than the other? Let me know your thoughts on these topics or anything else you have on your mind down in the comments section below. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.